All right, Mayor, you can go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1.
All right, we will call to order the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission Joint Workshop Agenda for Monday, March the 10th, 2025 at 4 o'clock p.m. Roll call certification of quorum. Madam Secretary will certify the City Council has a quorum as all members with the exception of member Chavaria and Patel are absent from the chamber. They will be absent, I'm assuming, the rest of the evening as well. With that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Chairman. Would you do the same for the commission?
Thank you, Your Honor. The Planning and Zoning Commission does have a quorum tonight. 5 members.
Sounds good. With that, we'll move to citizens' comments. Anything turned over? There is none. Purpose of the workshop, moving to number 5, purpose of the workshop, discussion Old Town Revitalization Plan. With that, we will turn it over to staff for your presentation.
Yes, sir. So good evening, Mayor. Good evening. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, chair, and commissioners. So just something short from staff this morning or this afternoon before I hand it over to Olson and their team. I want to encourage everyone just to really enjoy this portion of the process. This is an opportunity to actually have a good time and really speak about the vision we have for a special area of town. And that said, I open with that comment because you are going to see some financial numbers today, and some of them aren't small. And so I know we'll all have the opportunity to discuss financing and how important that is. But again, I just want to encourage us, this document will not create any type of budgetary obligations, and it truly is its goal really is just to represent the vision our community has for this area. And so with that, of course, be critical of numbers, always be financially prudent, but at the same time, I hope you will enjoy some of these concepts and enjoy the visioning process. With that, I'll hand it over to Olson.
Hi, hello. My name is Michelle Queen. I'm with Olson. I'm going to be kicking off the presentation for the team tonight. And we are here representing PEDC, the City of Pearland, and on behalf of Olson, our team is Baxter Woodman and CDS, Community Development Strategies, and we have been working on the project, doing the analysis, and are here to present the big ideas. So we started our project back in July of 2024, and we have done quite a bit of outreach and engagement up until this point. There were 12 pop-up events, we had an open house, a visioning workshop. There's a whole list right here, but the results were that we reached 33,730 residents. We had over 2,800 survey responses. We had a virtual workshop that had 1,800 engagements, and we have a website that's getting constant hits on it. So we're trying to reach the community. We've gotten a lot of input so far, so we're looking forward to continuing that as we bring this plan home. So from our visioning workshop and public open house number 1, we had 2 vision statements up at the open house that have kind of synthesized into one draft vision statement. So you guys have a copy in your book, so if I'm reading too fast, please read. But Old Town Pearland, and this is kind of a prescriptive what we're hoping that Old Town Pearland is in the future. That's kind of the tense that this was written in, kind of what we are picturing now and what we see for the future. Old Town Pearland blends history, culture, and modern growth with sustainable infrastructure, distinctive design, walkability, and vibrant public spaces. Prioritizing safety, accessibility, and local businesses, it thrives as a connected, welcoming destination of choice for all. So you'll be weighing in on that through the virtual workshop, or if you have anything you want to bring up tonight, you're welcome to do that. But this is kind of the overall vision for the big ideas, for the framework recommendations that we'll be going through tonight. And that also is fed by the draft values. So the things that came out of kind of the big analysis that we did through existing conditions, kind of some of the issues we were facing, these are the things that kind of floated to the top as the values and priorities for this plan. And that is establish and cultivate Old Town's identity and hometown feel. So we're really looking to push those destinations, create kind of a hub for the culture of the community, and kind of be that center, that heartfelt place in Pearland. The second value is promote economic health and support local business growth. We're really looking to create a unique destination Something completely different from what Pearland has right now. So something smaller scale, some public activities and programming that will really create a destination, a place where people want to come after work and hang out. So again, create a distinct Old Town experience. That is number 3. So we're looking for kind of these evening events, these programmings, a place where you want to bring your family. So we're creating a kind of a distinct Old Town cultural experience. Number 4, enhance connectivity and access to key destinations. That was a big issue that was identified, is there's not a lot of connectivity between destinations and there's not a lot of destinations. So that was a big target and value for some of the ideas and recommendations of this plan. And then lastly, foster neighborhood health and quality of life. We know that it's really important to keep the neighborhood strong in this area and continue to add vibrancy and opportunity for people to move and create a home in Old Town. And what we found was that there are very strong neighborhoods here, and we're looking to enhance that and give the people in this area more amenities. Are there any questions so far about the visions and the values? Okay, moving on. So from there, we evaluated 6 different kind of major frameworks and recommendation frameworks, and these kind of set the stage for a lot of the recommendations. And those topics are land use and character, mobility, connectivity, utilities, and infrastructure. We'll be talking about those at a high level tonight because we're really going to focus on the public placemaking and public spaces, development and redevelopment, and the big ideas. So all of these frameworks are very interconnected, and I think you'll see that as we get into the big ideas. But we're really going to emphasize the 3 on the right. And then if we have any questions about the 3 on the left, we're happy to answer those toward the end once we get through the big ideas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Brendan Kane with Olson as well. Before we really kick off with the big ideas and what we're all here for this afternoon, to really dive in a little bit, we, as Michelle mentioned, as part of this planning process, we've been fortunate to reach a lot of different parts of the community, a lot of different residents and business owners, and a lot of the different things that are bubbling to the top. We've kind of identified statements of need. What is really the purpose of this plan? What are we trying to achieve when we, get to the final planning process and this gets adopted and handed over to the community and staff to start being able to implement this plan? And some of the items that we've identified and we talked about is really, developing a well-maintained physical environment. Old Town fosters a lively, walkable atmosphere. That was one of the key things that was identified, is really kind of having that heart and soul of a community that people can come to. It's a different attraction than maybe your Pearland Town Center and some of your other business districts within the community. People really are hoping to foster some of that, independence here a little bit, some of that homegrown type of business entrepreneurship as part of this Old Town area as well. And we're looking as part of this plan to hopefully create some of those additional entertainment venues and gathering green spaces, whether that's an enhancement of some of the existing green spaces and parks that are within there, or as you'll see this afternoon, some of our concepts, looking to maybe create some new green spaces and new attractions and entertainment elements as well, to really bring people to the heart of the community and heart of Old Town as well. As I mentioned, we really are seeing a need, as through the analysis that we've done and the input that we received, that Old Town is really kind of that unique small business attraction from a character standpoint. We're not looking to really redevelop this into your next high-rise type of community or anything along those lines, but this is really meant to be kind of that homegrown 1- and 2-story type of developments, but really an entrepreneurship spirit as we talk about, and really creating this as a unique destination, different types of retail, small businesses as part of that. You have some great bones here right now, and we want to continue to be able to create that diverse mix of different businesses and opportunities here within the Old Town area as well. And then when it comes to parts of the implementation as well, we really feel as you go through this process and as you start building momentum on some of the big ideas and the implementation, it's going to be key, not only from a city standpoint and staff standpoint for implementation, but this is going to be a partnership. This is going to be a partnership between the City Council and the Economic Development Corporation, but other agencies within the community as well. And being able to look at how to program some of these spaces and different elements that we're suggesting this afternoon as part of the big ideas is going to be key to continue the momentum in making this a thriving place. But also, as part of this from an implementation standpoint, we're going to be looking at different policies and potential incentives to encourage some of this development as well. As I mentioned, Matt and his team at PEDC cannot do all this on their own. The city council can't do it. And this is really a true partnership that's needing to be created as part of this planning process moving forward. So those are kind of what we call the statements of need of this plan from here and moving forward. And happy to turn it back over to Michelle to start kicking us off through a couple key frameworks and then the big ideas.
Okay, we wanted to start with the placemaking and public spaces framework because that's a huge part of what this plan is about. It's creating that special place that's going to drive that economic development, that's going to make people want to live in Old Town and start their business in Old Town. So some of the issues that we addressed and the priorities of this framework were connectivity. We wanted to make sure that the destinations within Old Town were connected and that there were destinations, critical mass in certain areas that had a purpose. So key areas include Hunter Park and Zichlinski Park, programming them, making sure there's consistent programming throughout the year to keep them activated. We have identified Grand Boulevard as an activated connector from Orange down to Walnut, including the Festival Street. That will be a pedestrian only during special events, but is going to really be that heart of Old Town. So you'll see the three kind of dark orange areas. Those are kind of sub-districts that we're looking to create that special experience. So we have our entertainment district against the railroad with a pedestrian overpass at Jasmine. And then we also have the heart of Old Town that's situated right where First United Methodist Church and the old Pearland High School are. And then we've concentrated a civic hub closer to the Melvin Knapp Activity Center and the Brazos County Health Building. So we're looking to kind of create a nexus there of civic services within the neighborhood areas. So placemaking is going to be a big theme. We've also got public art as a connector. We want to use public art, signage, and landscaping as a way to bring people around and navigate and tell the story of Old Town. So you'll see different designations for monumentation as well as public art that are going to be at key intersections, bringing people all through those areas and giving important information to users.
Michelle, real quick, on this map, it shows the multimodal trail connection to Clear Creek Trail at the top.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important that just off the south side of this is a portion of the Mary's Creek Trail. So this is an opportunity to show a connection between the two trail systems. So I think it'd be good on the bottom. In fact, part of the Baker's Landing commercial that you have down here, there's actually a gate fence area in their existing subdivision that shows a connection. You can come through that and 2 Grand and up. So I think it'd be good on this map to show a connection also to that trail connection.
Yes, sir. I guess just to continue the conversation of what he was saying, there is a major connection that we've proposed along the rail line to Town Ditch Trail, as well as through Hunter Park down Grand to Walnut, and then down Broadway south. So we have several connections to the trails, to the creek system, the regional creek trail system. And then moving into our development and redevelopment framework, this is kind of a compilation of previous planning analysis, previous plans that you all have done, the 35 corridor study, as well as our analysis that we've done as a team, and then the fiscal market economic study that was completed. So the primary opportunities are displayed in orange. Those you can tell are kind of correlated to the big idea areas as well, but those were kind of the largest swaths of land that were available. So those are kind of our large development sites that we targeted. The light blue, the secondary opportunities, those are areas where we're trying to develop that destination and critical mass. And some of these properties may be designated just from lower value on the property or low intensity. So there may just be, maybe there's more parking than necessary on these sites, and there may be an opportunity for some site development or enhancement. So, and then other opportunities as well. Those are kind of the third tier of opportunity that we've cited a little bit more involved in creating development along those sites. So we've kind of created 3 levels, 3 degrees of development opportunities with this graphic.
One thing we want to share with the group here as well is that, we've identified, as you'll see, we have 5 big ideas, which we really think are kind of the first directional phase to implementation of this plan. We recognize as we get into it this afternoon, some of them are going to be short-term solutions that could be almost readily available to jumpstart and build some of that momentum within the Old Town area. And we recognize some of the big ideas are going to be a little bit longer planning terms. There are other factors that go into it as well. But this map is really, we don't like to use the word low-hanging fruit or anything else along the planning process. We really like to identify those kind of immediate wins and opportunities, and that's why you will see some of the ideas. What's in orange is really those things that the City Council and the PDC can really focus in on right away, and for an attraction standpoint to potentially look at development or redevelopment opportunities. But this map also is really a guide as well for development and redevelopment within the Old Town Pearland area. Again, looking at different factors. There are other parcels that can be taken down as part of this planning process and be evaluated as where development and redevelopment could occur within the area as well. So it's kind of a priority of kind of first, second, and third, but it's really kind of the guiding framework to where we can start prioritizing some of those incremental investments as well.
Are there any questions so far? Okay, great. All right, let's jump into the big ideas. This is our key map to kind of identify the 4 major big ideas that we are presenting tonight. The first one is the Depot District. The second, the Grand Link, that's Grand Boulevard from Orange to Walnut. We have Center Square, which is near the post office in the southeast quadrant. And then we have number 4, South Junction, which is the Broadway Walnut one-way pair conversation. And then number 5 is South Junction, and that is just south of Scooters off of 35. These are our 4 big ideas that we are going to discuss. Big idea number 1, this is kind of the full extent of the image. Far north is Orange, and far south is Broadway, and then we've got our railroad tracks on the left and bound on the right by Main Street. So within this, let me skip one more, sorry. Here's a little closer view so you can see kind of the heart of the concept. We've got a major flexible green space. We're creating kind of that community gathering space. We want people to come here after work and have dinner. There's an opportunity for some amphitheater in the top using the business and community hub. I think the idea is to have kind of a patio, kind of elevated space that presents and is able to project onto the sunken green space lawn. So it's almost an amphitheater kind of flex space. So when it's not in use for an event, it's also just a flexible play space for families. We've got some playground there. We've got the relocated train depot down at the bottom, which is also surrounded by kind of an art history wall, the History of Pearland art wall. And then there's our pedestrian overpass just south of that. And that's gonna be a big critical connection for this site, is connecting the neighborhoods on the other side of the railroad tracks to this amenity and really creating that connection from, which is a huge barrier. The railroad has been a barrier for pedestrian connectivity. So this will be a big choice for this concept. We've also got space designated for restaurants and restaurant, entertainment, and brewery options. And then we've reserved some space for existing businesses along the major main corridor. This is just a description of kind of what I just went through, but in the brewery space, we were talking about some yard games, some mini golf, the restaurants where people are outside having outdoor dining. So this is a very activated space. One of the comments we received during the public engagement was that there's nothing to do in the evenings for families and for young people. And so this is really a destination for some great programming and an opportunity to connect this site with the Grand Link as well, and some programming in the park spaces. So I think there's a great opportunity for some synergy between Big Idea 1 and Big Idea 2 in that regard. And then really creating that public space, those third spaces for the community, and using those as leverage to attract more economic development into this site. Perfect timing. So this is the fiscal analysis for the Depot District. If you guys want to come up.
Which one's going to speak on this?
You're up.
Sorry. We're going to put you on the spot here.
Sorry.
Nothing like timing.
Impeccable.
So, Steve Spillett from CDS. Basically, what we did was take the development program that was developed by Olson and with the community, look for comparable properties elsewhere, primarily in Brazoria County, if we could find them, to see how Brazoria CAD was valuing them, especially if they were recently built. Tried to find as recently built ones as I could, and use those as comps to develop develop guidance for what potentially the construction in the Depot District and elsewhere in the development program, what the assessed values might be. I know it's not the actual but we're just trying to be somewhat realistic. And so that's what this table is. And so you can see that the annual, and by the way, the properties that are in that area right now have very, very low assessed value. So there's very little tax being generated in that area right now in terms of property tax and sales tax. This would, development program, basically under these estimates that I came up with, roughly $160,000 a year once they're built out. So that would be a substantial. I'm sorry, I don't have the base amount for what it is right now, but it's very low. And so this is the, let's see, here we're at Depot District. And so we also looked at potential sales tax. Based on some work that CDS had done elsewhere in the region, when you're sort of taking a look at commercial space and the amount of that kind of space that is typically filled with sales tax producing businesses, I think it's very important to realize that when you build a retail center or build commercial space, that only a certain amount of that space is likely to be occupied by sales tax, at least retail type businesses that are generating sales tax. You can also have things like medical providers or banks or insurance agents or realtors and things like that. So making some assumptions about the occupancy of those businesses, 75% for the general retail, 100% on the specific restaurant/entertainment uses. What would be reasonable to assume about taxable sales being produced annually, and translating that into city and PEDC sales tax. And again, the city is getting around that $160,000 number here again, so a pretty even impact, sales tax and property tax, and then another 50-some thousand for the PEDC.
Real quick, Steve, before you move off, Vance, did we get advance copy of this enough to maybe look back at permit value, the dollars that they had on 2 slides back? Was that comparable to what we're seeing in permit value coming in?
So didn't prepare that number, but can certainly get it. I mean, the 160, I would say overall, the 160, those prices per square foot, in my opinion, are pretty spot on, though.
Okay. It's just a check for what we're already seeing coming in. I think it's a good way to do that, as well as looking at the CAD. So, all right.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kristen Imshoff with Baxter and Woodman. And what we did with this project is we took the land uses from the existing side and looked at what they were to grow out to, as provided in the big ideas renderings, and then we of course looked at infrastructure. So for example, here on the utility infrastructure upsizing, for big idea 1, we do recommend a water main improvement. We have a small line there that needs to be upgraded in order to, make sure that proposed development comes in. An estimated cost is $600,000. I'm sure you also maybe noticed the pedestrian overpass that was across the railroad tracks. Depending on the requirements, of course, of working with the railroad and crossing over with the elevation and accessibility kind of requirements, this one has a range, so it's around 3.5 to 5 million, depending on if a structure would need to be on top. And of course, that's from today. So these are planning numbers. Of course, we haven't done any PERs or anything to, look at what's underground or have all the details in place, but these are planning numbers. And then also as part of this site, as Michelle mentioned, it's an active site. And so community green space and performance lawn. This area has, the open green space where we want people to come and gather for concerts and festivals and other public performances. And the estimated cost is 6 to 8 million. And then, of course, this also has a playground, the relocated train depot, which we definitely heard at public meetings were very exciting for a lot of people. They thought that was definitely something that would be nice within the area. And then the history wall, and then, of course, the story of Pearland Public Art Display like Michelle described to us before.
I was just going to step backward because I was too excited and I missed an important part about the description for the programming. One of the big ideas that we had gotten from public engagement was creating kind of a hub there with the business and community hub. That is pictured as kind of a welcome center, a kind of a small business incubator, and really a place for some synergy with that center and that event space as well. That's kind of a combined hub that's going to be there all the time, creating programming and creating kind of an interesting destination for people outside of the services and retail and other things on the site. So, questions on Big Idea 1?
Do we're going to stop and take questions on each one of these ideas one at a time? I think is probably the best way to do. So why don't we take a second, open up to council for questions and comments. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. If you go to the slide that shows the sales tax impact, do you know what tax rate you use? Because I did the math, and unfortunately it's wrong. Our city sales tax is 1%, and the EDC is 0.5%.
Right.
And I think it's calculated at 1.5% for city sales tax.
Okay. I was looking it up on the comptroller's website where they have a local sales and use tax history.
And I think what they do is our total between us and EDC is 1.5.
Okay.
So it's 1 to the city and 0.5% to the.
I know I was using 0.5 cent for the,
for the
PDC.
Our other 0.5 cent the county has.
Okay, maybe that's it then. So misinterpreted. Apologies.
Just wanted to make sure. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
I guess I appreciate Martin's comment about forget about numbers for now, but this is a great, pretty picture, and I love it, and we can sit here and daydream, but this is a large price tag, and I don't know. At some point, I'm excited to see what we can actually accomplish. And if this is one of them, that's great. Maybe we can talk about funding sources at some point, but I guess I hesitate. I get apprehensive that it's another great plan that everybody can look at, and in terms of implementation, I mean, this one alone is what, 13 million, and those estimates may be low. So I don't know. That's me trying to put a damper on Martin's comments about sit back and daydream.
Ms. Vance made the comment.
Yeah.
Martin's back here going,
Man, I already wrote you off, Vance. I was talking straight to Martin.
you got any comments?
I'm kind of along the same line as far as the funding. Are there other types of avenues that we can, I mean, I know our TERS on the west end of town is be expiring. Is there any of those type, demarcations or funding ideas that we could do to spur things like this on this end of town? That, would be my question. And
Yeah, and I think it's going to end up being, I want to remind everyone that, you know, whatever we come up with here, it's not going to be a green field where it happens all overnight or in 5 years. This is going to be
long term.
this is going to be a long-term dream to come up with. I do have some thoughts along that, but I'll wait. Any other?
I think it'll be the return that we'll get from doing something like this in the long run would be worth it. And it's definitely worth exploring and discussing. And if we can come up with some funding sources, creative funding sources, if they need to be creative, it is worth it. It's worthwhile.
Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like the plan. We always hear that there's not enough event space in Pearland, and so I like you've got that listed on here. I like the big green space. It feels a little similar to the green space down at Baybrook Mall.
Mm-hmm.
That when you have a day like this, you go out there this evening, it'll be packed. You know, it'll be full of people, families running around, kids kicking soccer balls and all that kind of stuff. And I think it would be great to have something like this in our community. More of that one Pearland feel that we continue to talk about. I think this is a great amenity. We can figure out how to fund it. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Sorry, one more, Mayor. And for the few folks that have reached out to me, I guess the concern was putting an amphitheater and community center and event space abutting a train track. Yeah, I mean, I know that it's undeveloped now, but we've had folks concerned about what type of cargo is carried on the trains. And you know, if there was ever an event that caused a derailment right there, I mean, we're inviting kids and families to come play in green space. And then simultaneously, you know, we hear about event center and, hey, we want to have a ballerina or recital or something there. And I guess we'd have to schedule it around the railroads coming through because that'd be tough. And anyway, was there any discussion or thought about putting that right up on a railroad track?
Yeah, we went through different design concepts. I mean, and we, you know, from the design chart that we had back in late September, October time period to now, we've made sure that we stayed out of the railroad right away. We understand that it is a pretty frequent freight, you know, train that does come through here. But as we've evaluated what was probably, hopefully what we believe is the highest and best use for this property, you know, there was definitely concern to put in any type of residential buildings or anything else adjacent to the park. And so, I mean, this concept is not any different than, you know, I think what happens in other places. And I think there's certainly ways around it to make sure that there is a protection standpoint, whether there is maybe a wall that, you know, is along, you know, the west side of the park as well that could be turned into kind of an art mural or something along those lines. That's a sound wall. I think there's a lot of different design aesthetics and different design elements that could be incorporated into it to make sure that there is a protection standpoint from the park. But again, just because of how unique kind of the properties are as well, and, you know, kind of to address the bigger question that, you know, from a phasing standpoint, and Mayor, you are correct. This is not something that you would hope that someone comes in, I want to take down these, you know, 8 properties and we want to start doing this tomorrow. But the reality is this is probably a 5 to 10 year, you know, build out, because there's going to be some property acquisition that's going to need to be property acquisition that's going to be needed in order to do this, whether that is on the public side or the private. You know, that's something to be considered on. But when we looked at it, and from I would say a very preliminary phase-in perspective, there are some properties that you could certainly acquire now that could really kind of jumpstart for some of this, and similar to some of the other big ideas that you'll see this afternoon. I think once you start building a couple of those small pieces, everything else will kind of, the vision starts being created and everyone else to get more excitement to do it. The numbers that Baxter and Woodman, you know, presented here and along with the other ideas, those are public infrastructure costs that we're assuming right now. But again, from an implementation standpoint, we're really talking about the big ideas today. We still need to go through, get the feedback from the group here, feedback from Open House tomorrow. But we are going to be, as part of the implementation plan, looking at what opportunities, and that's part of the conversation here today. What is the city and what is the EDC willing to do from a incentive standpoint? Are you willing to maybe consider, you know, some form of tax increment district here to support some investment or reinvestment within the area? There are some other grant programs that you currently use right now, whether it's 380 agreements or anything else that could be as part of this. There's also a lot of potential partnerships. You know, that pedestrian bridge could be partly served by, you know, TxDOT along with the city as well. So those are things that will be implemented as part of a recommendation standpoint to help fund some of these. Because again, we understand that the city and the EDC cannot just support all this. And as we go through the presentation this afternoon, there are some large numbers here. But we do believe that it can be realistic. But again, it's going to take some partnerships and some time in order to do some of these elements as well.
Go back to just the financial numbers real quick. Not that one. The public infrastructure numbers.
Oops. There we go.
Okay. So here's kind of how I see some of this working. First off, what's not on here, I did have a question about the depot. Is that assuming this depot gets moved back, or is it something new that's erected?
We heard a lot of feedback through the planning process that there would be a desire to relocate the depot that is currently here back to Old Town, to its original grounds. And so the amphitheater and the green space that was planned in there was to really kind of enhance that. Again, as Michelle mentioned early on, you know, the art history wall and everything else is really a tribute back to the depot location and really the starting grounds of where Pearland began. So yes, that would be.
I would love the opportunity to see it relocated back down there for the right reasons. I wonder if it would survive the move, and that number is not in this anywhere in here. That would be a public. So I don't necessarily think that everything we're talking about in here is public money. Okay, and I don't see the city necessarily buying the 8 parcels. We're going to find the right developer that we're going to partner with that's going to come in here, and they're going to do that. They're going to do some of the infrastructure, public infrastructure, just like they would if they would do any other developer, right? The green space, that part of the question I have, is that something that we own? Is it something that a developer owns? Is it something that the developer schedules, different events? Is that something that us, along with Tracy and Visit Pearland, schedules and helps, put together? I think there's a number of ways that we can get that done. I think in concept, we have to come up with the concept that we like. And again, concept, it's going to morph and change. And then that's where the developer community comes in and says, okay, I can do that, or I can do this if we change that. And it, has some sense, around it. And even like a pedestrian overpass. I mean, if it's developer driven, it could be TxDOT City and the developer working together to put that up and done. I do like the opportunity of maybe a 380 in the area, because you are going to enhance value over time. So just, want to make sure that we have the opportunities to do that. Before I'm going to head over to the P&Z to get their questions on this portion of it as well. Any other questions from council?
I understand Councilmember Carbone's concern with the railroad, and not to get into the weeds with design, to quote somebody, but is there a way to flip-flop the green space and the parking? Go back there. So the parking was by the railroad. Just a thought.
And again, I think that's conceptual, and then final design by, the people who actually putting the money in it, like a developer.
Yeah.
They're going to.
I do like the design a lot, but I understand what he's saying.
Yep. Mr. Koza?
Just a comment on the railroad. I'm a lifelong member working along the railroad. It's gotten a lot quieter than what it has in years past. It's not that bad. You do feel the vibrations of the train moving up and down, and there is a little bit of noise, but for the most part, it's not too bad.
I love the railroad.
With that, Mr. Chair, we'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, I thought the same thing as Commissioner Carbone about the railroad track but bottom line is we can pick it apart. We've got to come up with some type of design that, and this is a good design, but we can sit there and talk about the what ifs and and we'll end up with like what we've had in years past, just a plan. I think that, you know, when we decided that we were going to have this and have the committee and stuff and have our input and stuff in there, I didn't want to see it as something that we just went down there and talked about and then come away with nothing again. I think there is a way to do it. I do think it's going to have to be creative, and but I would hate to think that we ever had the newspaper flash of a train wreck there. But in reality, we could have a train wreck at Cosa's also, you know, and take out the whole last back part of his warehouse. So, you know, there's always going to be that opportunity, or that there's always going to be that negative, no matter what we do. So, and as far as is the trains getting quieter, are you sure that that's just not your hearing being able to go?
I can tell you that the train used to blow its horn right as we passed my warehouse. It's gotten considerably quieter.
Used to blow your back wall off.
All right. Well, I think
You did not want to be on the phone when a train came by.
Okay. I appreciate all the work that Olson Group's done, and I just hope that we can make this thing work out and actually come out with something in our lifespan. So, thank you.
Okay, so this looks like something that's more of a private developer type development, not a city project. When I think of a city, I don't know if it's a city project, but if I think about towns that have a really phenomenal downtown, maybe I'm thinking too big, but just to what my feedback is, anywhere I travel to a city that has a lot of people on bikes or walking around or with their kids, it's near a water, a river, at White Oak Bayou, City of Houston downtown. They've have that bayou there, and there's tons. Like, it's pretty amazing to see how many people are there. Mountain View, that's out, but I'm just thinking of visuals here. And then there's connectivity to it via either a city bus or a train. And then that gives people in the community access to go out to eat or to bars or entertainment venues. They don't have to drive. That's the one thing Pearland lacks. And then I don't know that I'm keen on, I don't mean to offend anybody in the art and the history of Pearland, but I think that I didn't know that that's what people wanted us to spend the money on. So I'd like to see more of that over more entertainment for family and kids. Like, if you had to choose between a park and moving the train depot, I think people in the community would rather see a park, but I could be wrong. So that's just my feedback on that. And then this kind of reminds me of something that we would see over there by Bass Pro, and that in some prior developments where they've come to us for some type of development. And I know that we're trying to get something in Old Pearland Town Center, but that's what I'm saying. I don't. It looks more like a private developer type project than it would be a city funded type project. But that's just it. That's my feedback.
I think the first thing is sticker shock and it's going to be the first sticker shock of 4 more to come, I think. And that's going to come down to, let's set that aside and see what the implementation plan is and what the financing possibilities are, because we don't know. And until we kind of see what's out there, I mean, and then even looking at the funding, we know that some of the groups we'd look to recruit are going to want some of that property tax or sales tax back to support that versus coming to the city. And I know when you look at all the needs we have as a city, I got potholes in my neighborhood. There's sidewalks that need to go in. There's probably 50 positions in the city that haven't been funded and won't be for another 5 years, right? But you got to create areas of investment that are going to keep your city growing, because right now, how many dollars of Pearland residents are going outside the city? when we go to eat at restaurants, the majority of the time we're leaving the city. We're going to go for entertainment. We're leaving the city. How do we keep those dollars here? And I think there's a balance. Entertainment districts come in all sizes, from the potential what could happen at a Bass Pro Shop and what we've had discussions with the past to something like this, and there's successful ones of all sizes. It's that mix of uses of what that draw is going to be. The good thing about this is it's a private-public partnership, right? So there's going to be public money, but you're going to have the businesses. Whatever's going to draw in the longest amount of hours, from the morning to the evening, is going to make it successful. So I'm, pleasantly surprised. I like conceptually what we're seeing, but obviously, let's get through the presentation and figure out how we pay for things, and then we can sit back down and see what we can make a reality.
I like it. I think it's bold. I think there's definitely ways to get it done through funding and grants. There's one out there, Bring Back Main Street, literally. If your main street of your city is Main, there's funding for that. There's caveats that if it's another named street, Pear or Pearland or something to that effect, there's caveats that the funding can still go there. TA grants for your bridges and pedestrians. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. How do you establish the funding and bring that tax revenue back? 380 is a good way to do it. Coming up with a plan, I think is the first step. How it gets built, yeah, that's the second one. I think this is one of the things that the city is somewhat missing. Incorporating and having a place to show our history and show, where it came from, but also adding a place for our citizens and for new citizens to be a part of. Look at City of Sugar Land and their big city square. If you think about that, there's always people out there, especially this time of year, and it's surrounded by restaurants and just places to be outside right in front of the very nice city hall. I think Commissioner McCoy has an event at a train depot that's very, very similar. I think he had it for his birthday last year. Very, very park-type-esque place that I'm thinking about. So again, to draw more people to our city, I think we're missing something kind of like this to really connect past, present, and future. And if there's a will, there's a way. I think we can figure it out. And if that's us being landlords and leasing out to restaurants because we developed it and we get that money back plus the tax base, I would kind of like to see maybe a return on investment analysis eventually. If it's not, if nothing is there now, right, and we're getting virtually zero tax in now, and we go to buy it and we develop it, what's that kind of return on investment kind of deal? It's not a exact science, but it's something versus a no build versus a build scenario kind of deal. So, but I think it's a great first shot, and I applaud it. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Cade, you got another comment? Let's move on. Oh, hang on. Let's do Henry first.
Thank you. I too thought about that analysis, but first, if I could make a general comment, I think this presentation itself was 160 pages. I looked at it over the weekend. I got to about page 40, took a whole bunch of notes. I had no idea we were going to skip to the big step or big whatever it was called. So it'd be nice, since everybody has limited time in their lives, it'd be nice to know this is the focus. I would have jumped to that and been more prepared. So my apologies if I'm not perfectly prepared for this. I guess for me, this is redevelopment. It's one of the things we talked about before, that our town has gone from buy the next rancher to infill and also redevelopment. But there's a huge cost. I mean, I looked on Google Maps just now, the aerial photo. There's a lot of businesses that are currently there. I don't know what it would cost to buy those businesses out, or if that's part of the play, or you're just going to wait and wait until they go away before you buy their land, that kind of scenario. But that wasn't in the numbers. But from an analysis on the financial, I saw $160,000 of I think it was property tax to the city, and another 40 or 50,000 of sales tax. It's $210,000, and it was a cost. The low side of the cost ranges, not including buying land, was $10 million. So $200,000 return on a $10 million investment. I'm not the accountant here. I think we have one, but I don't know that that's what the city would want to do. And as for the railroad track, just a comment about the railroad track. When D.R. Horton came in here, and the property, I think, was off of Bailey, the one that's under construction currently? Mm-hmm. The city made a huge, for lack of a better word, a huge deal out of building close to the railroad track. You had to be X amount of feet away for a resident from a railroad track, and they pulled all kind of studies and all kind of things to prevent that neighborhood to come in. And one of the reasons they used was a railroad track. And here we have businesses and parks adjacent to, not even 200 feet away or 500 or whatever that number is, but right adjacent to. So to me, it's a double standard. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so one more comment. I think that this needs to have some type of water feature, even if it's just a splash pad.
There's some in the middle of the park, Jennifer.
There is?
There are several water features in the light blue that's there.
Okay, I couldn't tell what that was. So what are those?
A combination between some form of play structure or splash pad, or again courtyard as well as part of that.
And then how big is the site?
Not big at all. 3 acres.
Yeah, I think it's right around 2 to 3 acres is what we had identified for that park space right now.
Is it possible to show like a bike trail that goes through it where they can connect the other trail for races in the future?
Yeah, we on the overall placemaking and on the mobility frameworks that we have in there, we have identified, and it's a continuation from your current mobility plan that you have out there right now, is to have a trail that is along, again, identified along the eastern edge of the railroad tracks all the way down through there. That is one potential planned connection. And then that would be along Orange Street as well, connected into the existing trail that's up on the north end as well.
Okay, thanks.
And Jasmine. Yes, again, Jasmine would be another connection that would be connected into the park as well.
Mr. Tooman?
So I was kind of going to hold my comments to the end, but when it comes to the big ideas, it's 1 through 5. Were they setting any priority? No. Okay, just 5 options. Okay, that was my first question. So big idea number 1. I think there's more expense there, but I'm going to say if we can create this for $13 million, I think that the price tag is low, to be honest with you. This is a lot for $13 million. So as far as funding it, I know there's some avenues through the EDC. One thing in here is the community center event space. That's not going to be paid by a private developer. I think possibly we could even discuss that with the chamber, and there's some options there. And so, I mean, for $13 million, if we can create this, I would be all in. And I think there's avenues to make that happen. So easy.
All right, and I just wanted to respond to Henry real quick. If you go back to that, this map here, the stuff up and down Main Street that's white out there with the buildings, those are all existing. Mm-hmm. Everything that's colored in is vacant currently. So I don't think this plan contemplates buying out existing business. It's only using the vacant property that's there now.
I think over time there would be some, either redevelopment, repurposing, potential of buying some out, and those types of things over time. But I think it takes into consideration, that. And I know we got about an hour left for this, and we're only on big idea number 1. So let's move on to big idea number 2. These guys will be around tomorrow, council, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but we have a time planned with them as well. So we can maybe hold some of our questions even to that, and let P&Z comment on some of this, and we can get to it.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. Going on to big idea number 2, which we're calling the Grand Link, and it's really kind of broken up into 3 different sections. But this is the first section we want to talk about is actually what we're considering as the Festival Street, and so this is what's out there today from the Festival Street that we're proposing is from Broadway to Jasmine. So again, what you see identified on the map here, which is the green dash line in there, that is what's out there today along Grand. And this is a concept that we've bringing forward to recommend is really creating this block as your Festival Street that can be closed down. Again, this is kind of a tandem to a little bit bigger idea number 4 later on that talks about the heart of Old Town as well. But there was, from a destinational standpoint and what we've heard from, the Cultural Arts Master Plan and all the feedback that we received is really identifying different opportunities for festivals and ways and reasons for people to come into Old Town. And we believe this is one idea or concept that could have a lot of traction here. So the Festival Street, as I mentioned, is from Broadway to Jasmine, would be kind of a conversion of, removing the pavement that's out there today, bricking it over as well. You can see on the top is actually kind of a configuration of what would be on day-by-day use, which would be having, maintaining the parking that's out there, maintaining the drive lanes that are out there. The entire road of Grand right now should, it is a public road, but it should be considered almost like a parking lot when you look at the 3 sections kind of linking together at the end of the day. There's different experiences that come along Grand, but this one being kind of just the extension of the heart of Old Town, just going north. And then on the bottom, you can see actually again, a rendition of what it could look like when there's actually a festival going on. Just to the north of Jasmine on the northeast corner would be, kind of Zielinski Park as well. We've had a lot of conversations going back and forth of, do we want to extend the Festival Street further or not? We would recommend keeping it at Jasmine just from a traffic flow standpoint and maintaining the parking that's out there. There are some existing driveways and homes as well across from the area, but we feel that the look and overall feel, again, this is what it's not activated out there today. So you can see where we've incorporated some grass medians and wider sidewalks down there, 10-foot paths. So you'll see, as we've mentioned, not only the trail that in big idea number 1, but also Grand can be that linkage as well, linking, the northern off-street trails through this area as well. But then this is what it could look like from an activation standpoint, from a Festival Street perspective as well, within the Old Town area. So again, you have the entire space within the right-of-way to be activated, with all different events, whether it's a farmer's market or any other type of event that could be as part of that activation. I'm not going to go through all the numbers here, again, just because of time and everything else. But you could certainly break up Grant into different phases at the end of the day if you wanted to kind of take an incremental step approach to this. And Baxter did run some initial numbers here of kind of the first phase, which would be looking at a full reconstruction out there of the roadway, put in the brick as well, looking at different pedestrian enhancements at both intersections as well, the expanded sidewalks. We would recommend the potential for utility burial there as well to really make it kind of a pedestrian aesthetic space along there. Some decorative lighting, street furniture. Again, what's not in there is we suggested along the entire corridor, different public art displays as well. There's different programs within communities where you can have rotating art, different spots. We want to make sure that there's spaces for it along the corridor and little nodes to be able to do that. But a lot of different opportunities to incorporate your cultural arts master plan and public art into this corridor as well. We want to go through the whole Grand and then, okay. So the second piece of the Grand Link would be the parking street as well, kind of enhancements to north and south of the Festival Street. So we're looking at Jasmine to Plum, and then also from Broadway down to Pear. So this is what the kind of the current conditions out there today that you have, which is again just pavement out there. You have center parking in the middle, some minimal islands as well. And this is what we would suggest as a recommendation to enhance it long term down there. We still think that keeping the parking in the middle is probably the most beneficial, to maintain kind of the character that's out there today. But this would be what we would consider kind of a reconstruction as well, putting curb and gutter in along the streets, really defining that public edge that's not really out there today. You kind of have just go right off the road to the sidewalk, and so kind of having that pedestrian buffer there as well with a lush green space on either side, with the sidewalk adjacent to it as well. But again, really ties into what's out there today with a minimal cost to reconstruct a lot of those. Again, we would want to, look at a reconstruction, widening the sidewalks, really defining that area. Center parking with removable stop blocks. Again, you could, if you wanted to expand it, if you wanted to close another block off, if the festivals you have out here got so, grand and grandiose that needed some additional space, you could do that. Really looking at having a wide open space as general. But again, incorporating decorative lighting, street furniture along those lines as well. And then the third, kind of linkage here is what we call it along the Grand is the landscape median, which is from Plum to Orange and then from Pear to Walnut, which is really kind of the end pieces here of the overall Grand link. So this is what's out here today. Again, this is actually on the northern side of Walnut, or excuse me, of Grand today. And then this is what we're potentially considering, as an update recommendation as well. Continuing to maybe look at, put in some parallel parking there. Again, you have a pretty wide right of way out there. It is today. This may need a little bit of a modification. You have some of these elements that have been recently reconstructed on the southern side, and some of the brothers where you have parallel parking on the side of the road. We understand that this probably needs to be updated a little bit to maybe look at putting some islands out there to break up some of the parking and everything else. But in general, maintaining the same character that's out there. We don't want to be ripping out trees as much as possible. This whole entire corridor, we try to minimize as much of taking out the existing tree canopy that's there, or not eliminating any trees, but also enhancing it as well to make sure that it still maintains the character that's out there today. Looking at incorporating, especially on the south end right now, you just have a very blank green median, putting some additional landscape in the trees, and then continuing to expand the sidewalk as well to really create that north-south connection all the way through and really defining the overall public right-of-way and separating that from the pedestrian standpoint as well. And then again, we've also had our team kind of put some numbers together of what it would take to reconstruct some of those sections as well. That was a lot, pretty quick, but.
Yep. Start with you, Henry. Your guys.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just a quick concern, and I love the in to the out. You're focusing on what could be the festival type place with additional parking and whatnot on the interior, and then you slowly minimize that as you get into some more of the existing home space and whatnot. Just a concern is I don't know what that would look like from a potential festival right there at 518 crossing into parking. The majority of a parking space right there, the green section, and then it basically ties into Broadway, whether Broadway's one way or two ways at that point. That would be my only concern. But other than that, it's a great concept.
I think the Grand Avenue has always been set to be redeveloped and do something nice with. I'll say I had an even bigger sticker shock on this when I saw some of those prices. But again, I think looking at what we can do and maybe when we go back and break down some of this costs and where we can have some savings and where we can do some other things, and especially if we can piecemeal parts of it to what we want to look at, I think I think it's nice when you say, hey, let's do the whole Grand Avenue, but maybe it's let's create this space, and that's something we can focus on.
My concern would be the just how the current homeowners would get out of their dwellings if the street was blocked off for a party, et cetera, or a festival. But love it. As Dumb and Dumber, one of my favorite lines when he says, "Totally redeemed yourself." So I like this one better.
Yeah, real quick, I actually see, of course, you've got it grand in section A, B, and C. You know, we could, all of it, part of it, you know, whatever we've got there. But this is actually a project that I see could happen faster, sooner rather than later. It could be the center point or the real focal point for the old town side initially, where you could envision, and even the festival section of it, that's what you would focus on. But I could even see that. I mean, I think that price tag on section A was what, right around 5 or 6. Yeah, 5.4 in today's money, and even some of what you have here can be phased. I don't know that you necessarily have to do this all at one time. I think you could do it in, you know, over X years and phase it in from even, you know, like from the sidewalks to everything else. One quick question: do you see changing up the parking the way it is now, where it's all center angled in, to going straight in parking? Do you pick up spaces with this, or is it, because ultimately you've got the school and the church that are there 24/7, and just kind of wondering if we actually pick up parking spaces for them, that would be a good thing. So just kind of wondering how to change.
Based on the concept design stuff we did, I'd say it's a wash, but this is much clearer from a navigation standpoint. And by putting that parking along that new sidewalk, that sidewalk doesn't exist on the right-hand side. So that's 10-foot trail, basically. So we wanted to make sure we preserve the trees, and then we put the walk there, and then we wanted to have a barrier so it felt more comfortable for the people on that edge as well. And so that's sort of why the parking got split up from where it is now. And I think it's a little easier to navigate as you come in, you pull in, and then you pull straight through without having some of that angle stuff. It's the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
And the way it's parked right now. So.
Yeah. And this is one, obviously this is on us. This is a public right of way. It's our street, public space. So this would be on us, which is, like I said, I think this is one where we could take hold of this today coming out of it and say, okay, how do we phase this and create the excitement? I know the Chamber and Visit Pearland and others, we've got a 2-day festival event down there at the end of April. I think we could cast the vision of what we want to do down there, even with an event like that, and people would get it. Pretty simple. So open it up real quick to council. Any other quick comments? We'll move on. All right, let's move on.
I want to address the one question. When we looked at the Festival Street as well, the reason why we're recommending this section is because there is pretty much no impediments for driveways or anything else. So from a standpoint of closing it down, you're not affecting any of these homeowners that would be there, and hopefully you would have, you know, the other businesses that would be supporting it on that standpoint. And why we presented the parking in the middle on the next section up is, again, depending on what happens, you have a lot of driveways that are still out there, so we want to maintain that center parking.
Well, I could see you moving even to the next section where it's one way in, one way out on the northbound side for the homes, so they can have access, but you access the park and even some stuff in front of the park, and even close off that part of the block on that side. I could see that being kind of an overflow area into the park as something grew or you needed more space. But I agree with you. And me personally, I don't know section C that we changed much. I don't know, maybe from a traffic management standpoint, but I think if we do what's planned there, we get way more pushback And I don't know that we gain anything except the on-street parking, which it's going to be important. Don't get me wrong, but I think festivals, you're gonna set something up at the school and you're gonna shuttle people over anyway, probably. I mean, but I don't know that we pick anything up that's worth the price tag.
Yeah, I mean, right now we've quoted as saying reconstruction. I mean, it could be from an aesthetic standpoint, it could just be a mill and overlay situation. I do think that you'd want to, from a standpoint of connectivity, you would still want to at least take a look at maybe the sidewalk and some of the minimal elements there. Again, maybe it's not a full reconstruction from that perspective, but again, I think just the separation of the sidewalk and having some of that protection would be a valid reason to maybe take a look at it. Maybe it doesn't have the on-street parking, things to consider, but I think you are correct, Mayor. That is probably the third tertiary of any type of improvement that would need to be done. And the follow-up as well, as we presented through the big ideas as well, 1 and 3 are primarily going to be private driven, and 5 as well. So as we get into the other ones here, this option and then big idea number 4 that we've identified is probably going to be more of a public perspective as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Ken here to walk you through 3.
Okay. As I was going to mention exactly what Brennan did. And so if you go back to 1 and the perspective that this looks like a development plan, well, because it is on number 1, right? That center core with the park and the community building and the crossing, that's the public investment piece that then drives the rest of the private investment. And that's the key to all this stuff in redevelopment is what's the minimum we have to spend to drive public or private investment to create a place in Old Town? So you're going to see that that's one of the things that we're trying to do with some of these things is how do we create place through private investment, but we know we're going to have some public investment of some kind. And so when we get to 3, this is really where the post office is, right? So the post office is in the lower left corner. And this is one of the, if not the largest piece of contiguous property that's available or would be available for development or redevelopment.
It's about 6 acres.
There you go.
We're in there.
And so from that end, we looked at it as a development plan. So one of the things that came out was very clear to us from the input phases of the project, which is we need destinations. We need additional people to help drive those destinations. And then we need some additional types of uses that all work together. And so when you think about this location and how it connects directly within the new housing that's going in, and then additional destinations from an entertainment, retail, restaurant standpoint, this is really mixed use focused, developer focused, that we see this as an opportunity. So we wanted to visualize that opportunity and then make sure that it ties into the other things. So as the largest redevelopment piece, we wanted to make sure that we showed you that. And so what you have here is a mixed-use project. It's 2 and 3 stories that has living, and then it has office and retail and service on the ground floors. It has recreational opportunities internal, and then it has some flex office stuff out towards Walnut. And then you also have, again, back to connectivity, you have on the right side of that illustration, you have a trail that connects Walnut all the way up to Broadway, and then it also connects over from the trail to the west. And so again, the investment here is really mostly private, if not all private. Now, we know that development deals are going to have to be made. There may be some discussions on how that would occur. But again, this is a positioning property to create some additional rooftops that will help you pay for the destination stuff that you want to continue to see there. And then hopefully there'll be some other retail service office stuff. And oh, by the way, it also feeds residential that can feed into the redevelopment of the old air hangars that we see as much more industrial flex stuff there, but it's walkable to get there so you can live and work in a very close proximity, and then you can get back to some of the other amenities here. Now, the redevelopment stuff is not shown on this map. It'll be on the other side of Walnut. But that's a summary of these things. These are all internal pieces. Steve, you want to go over this?
I'll just say on the numbers, similar approach was followed to what you saw for Big Idea 1. So you can see the estimate there of about $140,000 annually in property tax collection.
Okay. Any questions on 3?
Open up to Henry and your gang.
I'll start. So again, great concept. My initial concern would be parking. If you're doing a multi-level restaurant, livable space, workspace, multi-level there, that's a lot of parking that's coming through. I don't see a lot of gray color. And so I fear maybe a multi-level parking deck to support it, but I get it. It's Old Town, and that might not be the best. But again, if you're looking at City of Sugar Land, that's got all of that. They've got a multi-level parking deck that supports all of that, right there in that town square area. So just something to think about, especially if it is commercial in nature. Can it be supported? And the minute you throw those playing fields on there, that's going to bring a lot of vehicles. So just a thought.
So when I think long-term, like the city's long-term, I think it'd be really nice if the city ultimately had, and I don't know what this would look like, some type of simple, cute shuttle system, like you said, when the city has park events. But for people that are on the 288 that live over there, that can shuttle over, or you can catch like a shuttle system, but only operating on certain nights of the week, like maybe a Friday or Saturday, just to bring people out to these sites to shop for the entertainment. I don't know what that would look like, but I would think that shuttle systems drive people to, and I don't mean like a city bus, like a typical you're going to work, not that type of system, just one to help people get to entertainment venues and around town to some of these, but just, yeah. I don't know what that would look like. That's just throwing that idea out there.
I think I like the idea of having more residential. I think we were lucky getting a project just to the, obviously to the west of here, and bringing more people in, and people being there draws more people there, right? So the more you can put in there makes it a more attractive area for other people to drive in and see it. I look at this as a concept, and when you partner with somebody, they're going to come in here, and then every building's going to be moved around, and so I wonder. It almost looks like a suburban apartment kind of esque thing, and I don't think we need that. I don't think that works. But I think density is good. I think more people is good. I think it's a great location to continue building off what's already being built down there. I'm not even going to worry about the numbers right now because it's not worth it. But with everything that's gone on in this area to the south and to the west, I think this is a continuation of what we've been building.
Okay. One more comment. It was his great idea. So he was saying if you had like a parking garage at one of these locations, and then you just did a Saturday only shuttle between the 3 locations to bring people, and you could go between the 3 if they were ever all 3 built. That could be another way to bring people. But that is a very long-term vision, but that was a good idea.
This open space consists of 3 parcels. one of them is currently for sale and advertised for sale. There's a sign on it. The city is interested in, doing anything or partnering. It'd be a good, it's the main tract, the ones in between the post office and the current daycare that's there. I don't know if it's functioning as a daycare. I don't recall if it's still open, but
It is.
okay. But it's the one that goes up and has a leg all the way up to Broadway. My only concern here is that, the surrounding buildings are not as nice as something you'd like to put here. So every developer is going to realize who their neighbors are and decide if they want to go there. So, but if the city wants something like this, the perfect opportunity right now to write a check.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to council real quick, but I like the live work opportunity that's here. I think Old Town has always been an opportunity for a live work. So I think I see that here as well. Obviously, the devil's going to be in the details of a developer coming along, exactly what we have, what is that mix, is it viable, daytime activity, the whole thing. But I like the concept. I think it's a great location. I do like, at least in the plan, and what we could encourage is some of the existing trees in the staying. Like I like the existing grove out front where kind of when you enter, you're entering that part of the section. Those types of things. So I like that. It's unique. It is clearly a mixed use development. And it should drive something where people would want to go on a Saturday afternoon. So open it up to council. I guess ultimately people are going to want to know, well, what does this look like? And I'd be very cautious to put that in our plan because you're kind of locking people in. But we've all seen these types of things when you travel and you see areas like that. I mean, it's retail restaurant, something on the bottom floor, and it's going to be a loft. Instead of saying multifamily, I would call them lofts. Those types of things. That's going to be a softer view of it. How many units did you have from a residential in here?
91.
91. That's pretty dense, and I mean that would tip the scales on density. I don't know if you go back to the parking, comment, making sure that you could get that in there. But whatever it ultimately is going to be, I like the mixed use aspect of it. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. If you'll go to that slide 36, I hate to be that guy, but that number is not right. That 135, the total assessed value, the total assessed value of 140, that might, all of it's wrong. You haven't added up all the assessed value for buildings 1 through 8 up top. So at some point we need to sharpen the pencil.
I'm sorry, which number are you saying needs to be fixed?
The total 135, that's eight buildings at, call it 20K each, would be 160. So the formula in the 135 cell didn't grab everything.
Okay.
Therefore, your 135.
We'll definitely check it.
And the 140 is wrong.
Ms. Kate?
We'll double check those for sure. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't know. I do like all these. I mean, they're beautiful. They're wonderful. I don't know how to say this without. I mean, calling them amenities is wrong, but I mean, we hear how much the residents we're taxing them. They're taxing them out of being able to live here. I mean, if we could show them, I mean, some return on that.
And again, I think the point was taken very well. Something like this is going to be private dollar driven. It's not going to be tax dollar driven.
Right, but the other part, and I mean, we build the parks. I mean, the city can be responsible for some things. And it would be nice to see something like this. other than car washes and liquor stores, it'd be nice to see something pretty.
We hadn't had a liquor store in about 3 years, so we're doing good there.
Well, now we're on car washes. I think that's our new thing.
Mr. Brown?
I like the design as well. Parking is something that does concern me, especially if you start having these play fields up here. And you know, on this design, I don't see where you would have any parking accounted for if you've got these play fields being taken up by soccer players on the weekend. The pickleball's all filled up, and you got residents living in all these structures. And again, I know we're kind of being a little in the weeds on it, but parking would definitely be a thing that I'd be concerned about. Echo what the mayor said. I like that you guys have taken the time to protect some of the canopy and create this trail system that can bring you down from Broadway all the way down into East Walnut. Conceptually, I like it. The one thing that jumps out to me is we hear from developers a lot lately that this mixed use, there's no market for it anymore. That, you know, we keep saying, well, they want to build these apartment complexes that also have retail with them, and they say, well, there's no market for it, so we have vacant retail space. So I'd be concerned. It does raise some concern for me to have a plan that says we want to build that if, in fact, the market isn't allowing for those things anymore. They're just something to consider. I haven't heard that from y'all, but you guys are designers, not necessarily developers. So something to maybe talk to the development community on, perhaps, that does this even have a market for it where we're at today?
Yeah, and I think it's certainly more focused on live, work, and modest retail. This is not a shopping, first-story Main Street shopping district. That is not what this is. This
is your
live, work,
accountant, lawyer, you know, people like that who have a
yes.
office or shop on the bottom floor. And
Destination boutique, that kind of stuff, a restaurant or two, or a coffee shop, those kind of things.
So not necessarily all of these structures have office space in them.
Correct.
Say maybe some of them do.
Yep.
But it's
And
not
it's
the whole first floor deal.
It's live, work, and it's only a couple stories or 3 stories at max. Like the building number 1 is this first building on the left by the fields. There's only 14 units in there, so if you figure 14 at 1.5 for parking, you know, you start to be getting very close when you count the numbers in here and you include parallel on the entry street, et cetera. Your parking numbers are not that far off for not Main Street retail, right? That's not what that is. And so it's in our minds, it certainly didn't justify structure, at least at this point.
Right. Yeah, from a parking perspective, the retail wasn't the thing that concerned me as much as you start opening up these fields, and there's such a high demand in our community for fields. You can have that whole parking lot full of people that are just
and to some of the points that were made before, that is private open space as amenity for the development because those aren't assumed to be public park. Now, if that become a part of the negotiation and everything else, that's another story entirely. And then I really like that the Grove is there. I really appreciate that the Grove is there and it's connected to the other open space that we have, but we all know how things change on a development plan when you need to address some of those other issues. So,
can we move on to big idea 4?
Real quick.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
We got the spreadsheet and we fixed the formula. So at 225,000.
Excellent.
Commissioner Haskins has one small comment. Misunderstanding. Please proceed.
We're good. Proceed to number 4.
All right. Big idea number 4 is what we're considering or calling Old Town Main Street. And this is really focused on different options that could be considered for Broadway Street. We currently understand, there is an existing study, which is option number 2 that's out there right now. An existing study that's going on right now evaluating Broadway and potentially Walnut being one-way pairs through this area. We've acknowledged it and it's taken into consideration as part of this planning process. There is an option number one as well that could be considered, which would be kind of just an aesthetic enhancements only option. If you were not to, go the one-way pair option, you could look at maybe doing some additional streetscape enhancements, sidewalk lighting, but we really look at that as potentially I'll say a Band-Aid approach, and it would be incremental at best. You have some different cross sections that are out there today. You do have some infrastructure needs that need to be taken care of as part of that. And so when you're looking at, option number one, it's going to be fragmented, really at the end of the day when you look at that opportunity. What we would like to talk about this afternoon with you all is option number three, which is Old Town as a main street. And this is taken into consideration all the different feedback that we had heard from the community and the public, and really presented an idea that, is an option to achieve kind of that walkable built environment that you're looking for Old Town. And that option is really looking to consider redoing. Broadway is more of a 3-lane cross section. So this would be looking at an opportunity to reduce the lanes that are currently there right now from basically 5 lanes down to 3. You would be putting in a center grass median turn lane to support turning movements at key intersections along the corridor. This is actually, just so I am very clear on this, this is from Woody Street all the way to Barry Rose Road. So kind of the big eyebrow of Broadway as a whole, as you can see on the map here as well. It's about a 1.7 mile road reconstruction that we're considering here as well. But again, taking into consideration all the feedback and wanting to make this, really a walkable destination, connectivity, a place for people, and really think what we think is best for Old Town, which is this walkable environment. This really puts the focus on the people over cars approach here. And so what we're considering here is what we've identified would be looking at, again, just 2 lanes of traffic or 1 lane of traffic in either direction, on-street parking, wide-end sidewalks, greenways and buffers along there, along with the addition of a cycle track as well. Both your mobility plans, along with other plans that are out there today, identify some form. You have an existing bike lane that's out there right now that is pretty unsafe, in our opinion. So actually providing more of a protected buffer along Broadway, we think would be a huge improvement to this area. But we understand that this is a transformation that's not going to happen overnight. This is something that when we talk about, the 5 big ideas that we're presenting here today, this is not something that's going to happen over the next year or two. There is planning, there's a lot of things that need to go into it, but we think that setting the vision now for long term would be in the best interest of what Old Town could be moving forward. Looking at kind of, again, what we're looking at here just from a program standpoint, this is really about reconstructing the roadway with infrastructure upgrades as well. As I mentioned, the reduction in traffic lanes, the landscape median, right now we're estimating anywhere between 50 to 75 million for this 1.7 mile roadway at today's dollars. One of the big things that needs to be obviously worked through is the underground utilities, franchise fees as part of this planning process. But again, the benefits that you get from the people and the public perception would be, again, that buffered cycle track, the enhanced greenways, the expanded sidewalks, really that public realm and that place that you want to call that destination for Old Town and really create that special place, we think could be achieved by going this direction and considering Old Town and Broadway Street as your main street. Included in that would be kind of an extension. We talked about big idea number 2, which was the festival streets, which is really that connection of Broadway and Grand. We really see this as kind of the signature intersection as well. And so we would be looking at this idea of creating a raised intersection there. The assumption here with this scenario, and we'll get into what happens on Walnut Street as well, would be a potential for a take-back program. This would most likely be long-term, potentially a public road that would be turned over to the city at some point as part of this. But again, it's the opportunity to slow down the traffic, really focus on people, expand the pedestrian opportunities here through this enhanced and pedestrian safe raised intersection that would be at Grand and Broadway as well, along with, again, different street furniture. So you may ask what a raised intersection is, and that's really, as you can see here up on top and down below, it's really, narrowing in the area. You're actually almost creating a elongated speed table going through this area We don't anticipate that this would be a stop and go light. This would maybe, at a minimum, if you needed to, do a stop sign, but again, is really focused about slowing the traffic down through this area, really creating that heart of Old Town as part of this enhancement along Broadway as well. In order to achieve this option in this vision, you would need to look at the expansion of Walnut Street as well. Right now, Walnut Street, for the most part, is a 2-lane road that is out there. We understand that you are evaluating it as, as part of your one-way pair study at the moment, but looking at least today, what we believe would occur would be from a phasing standpoint. This would be your future FM 518. Again, in the scenario, this would become your major east-west thoroughfare connecting Broadway on either end, and in Walnut being designated as the new FM 18, with Broadway then being turned over to the city long-term. In this scenario right now, we're showing there would be additional right-of-way that would be required to implement this vision that's out there. You have, chunks of Walnut right now that are anywhere between, I would say, 70 and 80 feet of right-of-way at the moment. You would need to acquire some additional right-of-way to put some of the enhancements in there. But again, this is a scenario or an option to, at the moment, kind of transfer, the lane usage. Again, we're looking at what you have out there today, which is 6 lanes between both roadways. You're kind of repositioning Walnut Street as the major east-west thoroughfare, and then really converting Broadway into that pedestrian realm and environment that we feel is extremely beneficial and meets the goals and the values of what Old Town Pearland could be long-term. In this scenario as well, we've run the preliminary numbers. You're looking at a cost range of 40 to 60 million. Again, we don't want to get into the numbers deep today, but again, this project alone is really a partnership with TxDOT and other agencies as well. We understand that, but it's really an option that we feel that the community should consider when, again, trying to meet what hopefully the spirit, purpose, and intent of this plan is, really creating that walkable mixed-use district as part of this planning process. I wanted to share a quick success story as well. Just, as I mentioned, this is not something that can happen overnight. This is something that's it's gonna take some time. And I apologize for the weird font on the bottom. But this is an example of a similar type of redesign of a 5-lane road intersection that occurred in Lancaster, California. This was imagined in 2007 as part of their kind of downtown plan for this community. It just got reconstructed a couple years ago. And so we're looking at a 5-10 year probably planning process and design process in order to achieve what Lancaster did. But this is not unrealistic to achieve what is out there. And really, when we look at kind of the people-centered revitalization effort that occurred, here's some of the, again, the key strategies. They did do a travel lane reduction. They did look at different traffic calming measures and pedestrian prioritization. They incorporated different public plazas and outdoor dining. We understand your built environment does not completely follow this right now that's out there. There would be change over time. I think you have some of the bones available out there today, but very similar to what happened on Lancaster Boulevard, there was additional economic benefits that came in. Over $280 million of new private development came in, 50+ new businesses as part of this revitalization effort over time. And it really turned into that place that people wanted to come to for this community. So when we talk about big ideas and taking a big swing here, this is probably the biggest one that you're looking at here from an implementation standpoint. We understand that, but we do think that it is probably one of the best options to really meet what I think we've heard from the community thus far, wanting to really have that people-centered place for the community to be able to come to as a destination. I know there's probably gonna be a ton of questions on this one, so.
We'll start with planning and zoning.
Sure, why not? Is bold. Option 3 is bold. I think just looking at it at first glance, it can really, they really go hand in hand. Do you pursue turning Walnut into the straight shot 518 with TxDOT and go down that path singularly, I would probably say no. I think it works best if served with the previous big idea and revitalizing the half moon shape. Yeah, it can work, but I think you get a better and bigger return on investment if it's done as a whole, with the revitalization or the change to the shape in between. I think if you're going to do one or the other, I think the two-way pair is probably more practical from a continuity standpoint. But if you're going to pursue option 3, I think the revitalization needs to take place concurrently or with it as a planned approach to relocate and make Walnut the new 518. That's just my thought.
Again, just to be very clear, I mean, the big idea is Old Town, Broadway is Main Street. There's a lot of different steps here, and we would anticipate that Walnut most likely, in order to support the traffic and everything else, will most likely have to be reconstructed first, and then construction of Broadway being second. But I agree with you; it's a pair scenario of the bigger picture, big idea, long term.
Right. Yeah. If you're just going to keep and do some small minimal revitalization to the area in between, I think the two-way pair option 2 is kind of the way to go. But if you're attacking it and going with the big idea to completely revitalize the shape in between as the big idea 3, then it makes more sense to change Walnut to 518 in a long-term point of view, rather than without it. I think they work better together as opposed to independently.
100%.
I like the idea of the bike lane, the dedicated bike lane that you showed on Broadway, but if we could gain right away to put that, I'm not sure that the left turn lane, the two-way left turn lane being affected, how that would affect the businesses already on 518, but this option is a lot of money, and I think if the city were to invest, I'd rather see the city invest into the first 3 sites and then connect them together with like a cute trolley system that only goes between the sites and Pearland Town Center on like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then that brings people to all 3 sites. And it brings more people to Pearland because they have options. They can go from one site to another and just enjoy the trip around. And then if we wanted to get into the history, maybe your bus driver on the trolley talks about the history of Pearland. But one idea that he came up with earlier was on the 3rd site, if the city built a parking garage and you charge for the parking, you can park there and then trolley around to the other sites. That's kind of what I would like to see in a long-term vision. If we were to spend the money, I'd rather it spent that way than redoing Broadway, although it looks beautiful. I'm just saying, if we had to put our dollars into growing the Old Town site, that's where I'd like it to see it to go. And that's it.
I feel like we're getting to the point where we're pushing my ability to be open-minded and idealist about all the possibilities we can we can do. It's a big change from setting that chair back in that corner to coming over here. I mean, we know something has to be done on Broadway and Walnut. I mean, throw it at HGAC and get on the tip and see what happens, right? I mean, it's not a thing we could fund, we'll ever be able to fund with, if TxDOT wants to throw us some money and fix 518, then that's it. But yeah, I mean, I think realistically, a move to Walnut would long term would be amazing. I think about it like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or today. Sometimes it's too late to plant a tree,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I'm not so positive on the cycling thing as my counterpart. I think it's a waste of concrete in our 95-degree average summer days with, humidity at 4 million%. My concern is twofold. The businesses that currently purchase their land and purchase their buildings along Broadway, knowing it would be, a certain drive count, and now you've just taken that drive count away. I understand you might get some walkability and that stuff, but that's a maybe. I don't know the weather in California compared to here, but I don't see a lot of walking people on any of the sidewalks we have. That's my biggest concern. If I were, for me to consider, rather than take Broadway down a lane, why not add a lane to Walnut? And there's business, I say that, there's businesses along there that bought it because it was a nice, quiet street. It's traveled, but it's still a nice, quiet. The feel of it is completely different than Broadway, and now you're going to completely change that. I do understand at some point we got to do something, but I thought TxDOT was already moving to expand all the way up to the railroad tracks. So that's not to the railroad track. I know there's phases of it. I thought it all went all the way there.
No, their current plan, just so everyone knows, their current plan stops at the horrible intersection of Broadway, McLean, Walnut. Right there.
Interesting. So it could marry into some of the.
Yeah. So I guess one thing we need to talk about as it relates to the different options that are here. One-way pair. Do we do, over option 3 or whatever? So TxDOT's already on the books, funded moving forward from 288 to Walnut, McLean. That's going to go to 6 lanes. Currently, Broadway through there is 4 lanes with the turn lane, and of course you have Walnut. TxDOT, along with HGAC, is also studying now from our old town site into Friendswood, and long-term, what is that going to look like? So if you look at, and I would encourage our Planning and Zoning Commission to see the documents that is producing, because what you're going to end up with is 6 lanes from Old Town back to 288, 6 lanes from Berry Rose to Friendswood. What happens in this middle? Okay, and so to Henry's point, yeah, people bought expecting X. Well, we've now grown up past that. And so my concern is both Walnut and Broadway. If they're expanding both of them, it's the right of way and the dislocation of people. If we bring Broadway through and go to 6 lanes, you've just wiped every business out from McLean, Walnut to Berry Rose. That will happen. And so what this exercise has really been about is what's the best option that ultimately we coexist everything that's existing now, or very minimal loss. But if we go 4 lanes on Walnut, you've just displaced a ton of property there. Now, the south side of Walnut, you start getting too much into there. It's very, very shallow properties, and you take some of those properties, now they become undevelopable because they're not deep enough to do much with. So there's a pick your poison, which one's the worst one, for you, and avoid that one, and then, go at it. So the one-way pair option gives you, I think, it gives you the best option on keeping what's on the ground today on the ground. The one-way pair does. One of the other options of just adding to Walnut 1 lane, and then I think, if you just added it 1 lane, you could go, somehow you could increase your capacity. So Henry, that's the exercise we're trying to go through, is how do we thread this needle, knowing in 20 years you're going to have 6 this way and 6 the other way. What do we do in the middle so we don't just have more of the same? That's the difficulty. Open it up to questions for council.
That's what my question was going to be. If we choke, down to 1 lane each way to slow the traffic down and put 4, we're taking a step back on the traffic. But do we have an idea as far as from McLean east, kind of what the timeline is, just, rough boundaries of what they're looking at?
Well, so to John's point, if we go the tip route and try to get that, into it, it has to get into the RTP first,
you know, you're not going to have another call for that for another 2 years. And then the earliest available on that's going to be 10 years out. So that would be 12 years out, you know,
Just to
getting
solve the crunch period.
just
Crunch
to
area.
get that. But you're that far, if not further out on Broadway East.
Correct, east of there, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you have some time to figure that out, and it wouldn't be an overnight, you're going to do this tomorrow, just like this plan's not going to be. We would have to figure out the timing on, we really want to have that done by X, whatever X is.
And were y'all aware of what the study is in this area right now as far as, you know, how to make it work? Because I know we've been hearing, and I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing when they do come up with whatever they come up with.
And I've heard comments all, you know, kind of all around it. People understand, especially when you put it in context, like I just said, you got 6 and 6. How do you come through here if you don't change something?
Right.
And so then it's, okay, what's our best thing to change, right? That we can also capitalize on with the redevelopment plan that we're talking about.
We're very, very, very aware of all the different plans. We wanted obviously to present another option to you all in the sense of, because I think it's, at the end of the day, I think you're looking at one option or the other. You're either going to prioritize cars and moving quickly as possible to get through here, or you're going to prioritize potential walkable environment that I think a lot of the community is looking for. So again, how do you balance that? I agree with the mayor. It is very tricky, you know, in that sense. Again, we showed Walnut as 4 lanes. There's another option, you know, to put a center turn lane in and put an extra lane in there as well. You know, again, you would have to change some of the exterior, whether, you know, the sidewalks and stuff like that, you know, in order to do that. But there are options, I think, available that are still obviously being evaluated all around as part of that. But this is an exercise, an option we wanted to show you all as well.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, if I could jump in real quick. So the study of the one-way pair that we're doing with HGAC, we're getting fairly close to having, we've actually got the model on that, and it functions very well from a traffic standpoint. After this concept came up in working with the Old Town plan of bringing what is currently 518 or Broadway down to the one-way and then expanding Walnut, that also gives the same number of lanes in each direction, 3 lanes in each direction. That we have just signed a contract to do the modeling on that so we can see how that functions from a traffic modeling standpoint. So Raj, how close are we on getting the one-way pair study back, and then when will we have the modeling on the other concept back? Sorry, Raj, he's not at a mic. But I just wanted to let you know what that looks like and what we are doing, because I think really to kind of make a final decision as we move through this process on big idea number 4, we've got to have all of those data points as well presented to council.
I think that one-way pair plan and study, we looking at May-ish back to us?
Yes, it is almost ready for the one-way pair, but we wanted to add 2 alternative options that is out of this Old Town Revitalization project. Parallel 518 one-way direction with the parallel parking plus 2 lanes each direction on Walnut Street. That's one of the options. And also there are 3 options presented here. Option 3 is what is discussed today in the meeting. Option 1 and 2 are the alternative options that we have asked them to start the project. So we have already issued the PO, they started the work, and they sent a couple of questions to us today about that. So they are modeling right now, and they will present. The most challenging will be to come up with the geometry, because all those 2 boundaries, we have very tricky geometry. That's where I am a little bit more concerned. Also, Walnut Street, if we make it main as a 518, then railroad track, that's where we'll have more problem, because we won't be able to do a left turn lane, and there's a little bit of constraint there to make that intersection work. The railroad, 35, and both intersections, all those are tricky intersections, and geometry-wise, it's very hard to fit the way we want to do it there.
So I think May timeframe, we'll have all that information that will help inform this decision.
That's good feedback. Any other questions? Can we get?
Mayor Cole, if I could real quick, just as far as, with the one-way pair and the concept there, is prioritizing automobile and safety there, which is incredibly important. But only one of the options will give us an ability to create a downtown or old town district that this community has talked about for so many years. And so there is change coming of a pretty large scale with the 6 lanes either direction on this project. And so it's really up to us to make the decision of, well, we're going to accept the change, or we're going to decide to choose the change that lets us have something, a district that this community talks about.
Any other questions? Let's hit big idea 5. This is 35 or Main Street South.
Correct. This site on the very north or top of this is just south, starts just south of the scooters at Broadway and 35. And so again, this is a redevelopment play for private development, right? And so there are some public things in here, but couple of things that were talked about early on of what's missing, what are the things that people want to focus on, what do they want Old Town to have in it, and that's just some destination, right? They want to have, it was talked about leakage earlier, about going somewhere else for restaurants and entertainment and all that other stuff that people are doing now. Well, the Big Idea 1 and Big Idea 5 are focused on creating those places where you can spend your dollar in Pearland and not go somewhere else to do that. And here's just 2 other options. If we talk about early visible wins, the one on the south, which is this one here would be one development, right? That's a development parcel. And it would be an entertainment venue, right? Where you'd have outdoor yard, you would have indoor food, indoor, outdoor, all those sorts of things that is very popular from a destination standpoint and probably doesn't go away anytime soon. That would feed in not only to the neighborhood and the new housing that's there, but also as destination for the rest of the community, right? And so there's a private development piece that would get to that destination piece. It also reserves on the corner right here is a little pocket park for the new housing in the neighborhood that's being developed there. So they can be a good neighbor on one side, but also have a destination for them on the other side. To the north of there that's the existing 7 Hughes site, if everybody's familiar with that. And to the north of there, I kind of became a little enamored with the 3 vault building that sits there. There is historic automotive in there right now. There's a really great opportunity for redevelopment of that building to have a unique structure that is large enough to be able to do a whole bunch of different things inside of it, and then provide for outdoor bands and other attractions to go there, along with some indoor-outdoor activity going on there. So it could very easily be brewery, it could very easily be distillery, it could be very easily, any of those kinds of options. And then you also have event space behind it that you help activate as a destination, right? So if you can program that stage for performance for 75, events, then that really helps them make their number in the end. Parking in front of that, and then there's a small food truck court there as well. And so food truck court right here. Is it on the next slide? Oh, well, here it is rotated. And a little easier to see, food truck court right there. And so that's an accessory to a Festival Street piece that if you wanted to have an event that from there to here, you could close that down. It's a very manageable piece. All you're literally doing is making it feel like it could be a multi-use space by changing the paving. And then you can close it at either side. There's plenty of network grid around there from a transportation standpoint. And now you have, again, you've expanded your ability to hold events, festivals, and encourage private development as well. And so the public investment piece of this is very small. It's private development, but there are things we could do to enhance it that would benefit, I think, the community, benefit the community as well. And so here's the summary of the square footage of the different buildings and their tax proceeds. How do we do? Are they summed? Because I knew that was the next thing coming. He says we just checked and they are summed right.
It's all good.
I know what season you're in right now, so I appreciate that all you see is numbers, right?
I'm here. Yeah. Any other questions from planning and zoning?
So these are on a scale that, you know, that first image that you saw that had the red, the light blue, and the dark blue, these are on the scale that these are those sort of site opportunities that you have throughout Old Town are redevelopment that a destination use can come on. It doesn't have to be as large as Big Idea 1, that you can start to change the overall character and what can I do if I go to Old Town? So we want to provide them with opportunities and options so they'll come and stay. And they'll come and bring our cash registers and they'll be a part of the community and create more value that way. These are a couple of those opportunities.
One little thing as we wrap up, if somebody could, during the wrap up, give people in the audience and people watching the timeline or the future here. I think you're going to have an open house tomorrow, just the details thereof. Thank you.
Anyone else from planning and zoning? Any comments on that last piece? All right. Throw it open to council. Chad, you got something?
I'll go. So moving forward, what's the plan? So I know you're looking for feedback, and then once you gather all your feedback, then what? What's the next step here?
So I guess next step is we're here obviously tomorrow. So just for the group's benefit, we're presenting to Pearland Prosperity tomorrow morning. I believe there's still going to be a discussion about having a designated city council time in the afternoon to stop by once we get everything up for the open house. There is a preview for the stakeholder group tomorrow afternoon at 4, and then there's the open house from 5:30 to 7:30. We're also going to be, once that is completed, we'll be doing an online version of the public open house as well to get virtual comment for people that are not able to attend. But yes, we want to get your feedback from everyone here, synthesize all that, and then start working towards finishing out the plan and the implementation plan for the project.
Okay, so when I look at this plan, I see something that, to a point made earlier, that none of this, I mean, all of this is not going to get done for sure. So the last three parts of this, you know, are you know, they weigh heavily on the parish study. I believe when the parish study, I think, as Vance said, it needs to be traffic driven. What makes the most sense for our traffic, and then we plan and we configure to that. That study and those road improvements are many, many years down the road. When they do come in, I think they'll cause some self-development there. I think I would like to see this thing really get focused on what we can actually do, like in what I understand we need to plan and look at and have some ideas, but until a lot of that's figured out, I really believe in Idea 1. It's what I envisioned when this started. If the chamber, you know, would step up and act as the anchor there with our PEDC funding and through some of the other suggestions with the pedestrian bridge like that, I really think that could happen. And I think so. My input on this is I would like to see the scope narrowed to a single project or a couple of projects that could be had within the first couple of years from now and start moving on it. So that's my view.
Mayor,
Okay.
if, are the big ideas in order of, no order, okay. I didn't even say it, and y'all were already going.
Nope.
No priorities on them.
But in line with what Councilmember Tooman said, because that was really, really spot on. Big idea number one is beautiful, and I don't want to say affordable because I mean it's millions of dollars, but I mean it seems like it's within the realm of possibility, you know, relatively soon. And the rest of these, I don't even know that I'll live to see some of them. You know, sadly, I'm old, but Joseph, you're the same age as me. I lost my train of thought thinking about how old I am. I'm sorry. But number one, and Grand Street. Grand Street is fantastic. The Festival Street, I completely love that also, and that's not that wasn't that much either. I say that, you know what I mean, relatively.
Absolutely.
So, to 13 million, 13 million.
No, it's 20 in 3 phases. So, yeah.
It's,
Well, they
it's
just
6 in
look-
the middle, the civic
right.
space that everybody wants.
So, but to narrow the focus, to use his words, is probably because I would like to see something get done.
Sure.
And then I think once people see big idea one done, how fantastic it is, start going and utilizing that beautiful space, then moving on to big idea 2, 3, all those, it's not going to be as hard a sell, perhaps.
Yeah, let me, sorry, Mr. Mayor. I would like to address both of those comments. And so from a process of the plan, right? We talked about it as a funnel, and we started with a lot of ideas, and we've narrowed them down to, these are just the 5 sort of big things, right? There are a whole bunch of other things that are the day-to-day, boots on the ground. These are the things we need to be concentrating on. These are the things we need to be working on, et cetera. So the first part of the plan is all of this stuff, right? Part of them are to say, we as a community, if you do, value this as an idea, okay? The back half of the plan is implementation, where we give you a hot list of things that are, here are the next 10 things you need to do. Here are those projects that you need to focus on because we think we can accomplish them. We think that if we put our resources together, they're doable, the project area 1 that you've talked about. I think 2 is the same way, and I think this project is the same way, and I also think that, 3 is the same way because it's private development driven. Really the one that is the big question mark is really 4. It's the big thing, and there's all these other pieces that are moving and swirling and everything else. And so I hear you. This is structured exactly that way, is to make sure that the ideas are the right ideas, and then we focus on implementation. So what we're asking is, are these the right ideas? Are these the things that you think the community is interested in moving forward in some degree? If the answer is, I don't know, that's okay. That's okay. That will be reflected in the plan, or it will be, removed from the plan. We want this to be your plan. We want it to be ownership of you. We don't want to confuse or put things in the way. That's not the point. The point is that we can affect change, that the Old Town community just said, we want these things to happen, right? This is about vision, and then this is about driving vision to reality. And that's what this plan is about. So this first half, again, is establishing the right vision, and then what do we do? How do we get it done, right? So those are the next pieces that are coming. And so we're asking for feedback. If the feedback is, we really want to focus in implementation on 1 and how do we get that done, and maybe 2 comes next, that's exactly what we want to hear, is that kind of feedback.
So, you got a quick question? I'm going to wind this down. Go ahead.
Okay. So
we got a transition.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I understand. So if I remember what you said at the beginning, 1, 3, 5 are really private development driven. Those are going to be agreements that the private sector comes in and kind of builds most of that out with a vision from this plan of some sort. And 2 and 4 are really the publicly funded taxpayer dollar projects. Is that a very quick summary? Is that fair?
One's got that central civic core where you've got
it does have the park part, which
park
would be
and the
public.
building and the overpass.
Okay. And I think that was one of your questions was, is that park built by the developer and privately owned? But that's something we work out later. You asked the question just now, and I'm glad you did. Is this the right direction? Do we like this? Is this where we want to go? I like most of this. The one thing I would say with this South Junction program development that you've got right here, I think, the right half of that is backing up to where Sullivan is doing their residential development now. There's a good chance that we're going to have more residential development in that area. That very well may change the whole dynamic of this particular project by chance. And it seems like 1, 3, and 5 kind of conceptually have a lot of the same components. You know, it's festival spaces and outdoor green spaces. So I don't know if maybe there's something different that could be done here where you don't kind of seem to have 3 pockets of very, very similar concepts. In my mind, one of the things that I like probably the most about this that I didn't see any of the other ones, and I know you want to wrap up, is the food truck park. I hear people talk about that all the time and having an opportunity for that. So if this area ends up going more residential before we got this far, maybe that something could be incorporated in one of the other development plans, because I know that that's something that gets talked about quite frequently. Otherwise, overall, I like what you guys have presented today. Thank you.
Yeah, so real quick, I'm gonna wrap this up, and then we got a little housekeeping for tomorrow in that meeting. But here's the way I see this. The ideas 1, 3, and 5 are privately driven. If I was to sit here today and roll the dice, I don't think all 3 of those happen. Do I think 1 or 2 of those can happen? I do. I think we have to cast the right vision and the right spirit of what we want, and then let the private developer come in and work with them to make it a reality. 2 and 4, they're our baby, and so we control those. Is it the right direction? So I could see, and all 3 of the private development are somewhat similar in that they have outdoor spaces and gathering spaces and those types of things. Number 3, a little bit different because of the live work. That's the one component that's different. So I like the direction that it's going in spirit. Where does it ultimately end up is going to be 100% in the private sector's hands of how we get there. What we should, I think, focus on is what we can control, and that is big idea number 2 to begin with. How do we create that festival space and those types of things? And then number 4, as we work through the various studies, how do we position ourselves for the next 20 years to make sure that Broadway, Walnut, et al. Works well for our citizens? And because big idea 1, big idea 3, big idea 5, none of those are dependent on one-way pair, Broadway, or anything. They're not dependent on it. They can happen if we leave it just like it is today. It could happen if we have one-way pair. It could happen if we have any of the other. And so that's what I like about the plan is they're all kind of standalone, and I think we can get there. The real question is just how do we start and what do we do next? Correct. So tomorrow we've got a scheduled 2:30 meeting with you guys for council to be able to sleep on this today and tonight and come in with some additional questions. I've got 2 members. I know for sure one won't be there tomorrow. Chances are both of them will not be available for tomorrow. In order to have a quorum, it's got to be 4 plus me. We have 5 plus me right now. I know you're in the middle of crunch season for you, and it'd be better if you're not there, and I want to respect that. So I need to know if the 4 of you have commitment to be there at 2:30.
See yes. See yes.
I'll be there.
Yes. Okay. So we have a commitment to our 2:30 tomorrow, which is good. We can certainly, if you got anything overnight, let us know. We can get it. We can get it on tape and questions back to you. So that way we can finish tonight and actually finish up tomorrow in that meeting. I believe it's at United Methodist Church. Okay. So that's where we'll convene tomorrow at 2:30. Folks, I appreciate the attention to this. I think we're on kind of the right track. Devil will be in how we round it out and finish it up. All right. So with that, I'm going to move to adjourn this joint workshop at 6:15.